How's it going, YouTube? This video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the State of Shadowverse, and I have this video not as a way for me to complain or say the game is bad or anything like that, because it's not. And it's only because I like Shadowverse so much and because I care about it and because I know that it can be better that I want to do this video so we can talk about the changes. Now, if you're a new player and you're enjoying the game and you like the meta, or you've been playing for a while and you don't mind the meta or just the state of the game, that's fine, and please don't let this, stop you from enjoying the game, right? That said, if you are an old player or a new player and you feel like you're not enjoying the game, you feel like doing your quest is a chore, game is just not that enjoyable, then let's talk about it. Let's talk about the State of Shadowverse and why it's like this and what it means for the future. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about two main points. The first one kind of leads into the second one, and then we'll kind of talk about how it all coincides together. Now, I want to say that this video is not just a rant on Shadow and Dragon, because although those two classes are like the strongest classes and might be the most problematic ones, I don't think they're the entire problem. And if you just nerf Shadow and Dragon, then there would be another deck that would be the best that people complain about. So, although in my examples I might reference Shadow and Dragon a lot, it's only because they are the most prominent offenders. But that said, this is not just about Dragon and Shadow, it's much more than that. Anyway, let's get started. Alright, so my first to do with Shadowverse is that games are too short, and I mean way too short. Now, let me say, just so we're clear here, obviously this is a very clear design choice by the developers side games, right? Games are meant to be short, because the idea is that people that are playing Shadowverse, it is primarily a mobile game. They're playing on their phone, on their way to work, on the train, something like that. And the idea is that the average player will log into the game, they'll play a game or two, and then just stop. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Side games, very clearly, they don't want to have these 30 minutes plus control games. And that's fine, right? That's okay, and that's cool with me. The problem is, games are too short. Games are, I would say, just throwing out a number here, on average, games are done by turn 5, 6, or 7. If you're not dead by those turns, the game more likely is decided by that type of play. And it's not even the games that just, the cards that auto-win. It's things like Shadow, for example. Let me use Shadow as an example, because Shadow's good at this. Shadow will go 1-drop, 2-drop Prince, and then from then on, it doesn't really matter too much what else is happening. It's very likely they'll just win the game off of that, right? So by turn 5 or 6, the game's already over, already decided. And when you have decks like these, it kind of means that other strategies are not really viable. You have all these cool cards in the games, all these cool things, but what ends up happening is that it's just these decks that are so quick that either nothing else can stand up to them, or they're just not viable, right? Even Dragon, which is not an early game aggressive deck, the way the Dragon plays is that they'll ramp up so early that by turn 5 or 6, Dragon will be at 8+ play points, and from then on, between Bahamut, Cells, Ouroboros, they pretty much just control the game from there, right? And when you have shorter games, I feel like there is less fun and less skill in the game, right? I am by no means a competitive player, I am master, but I'm not playing in tournaments or winning tournaments or anything like that. But that said, though, it does feel like, because games are so quick, there's less skill, right? There's less interaction between the players, and it kind of just, everything kind of plays itself out, right? And our problem with the game is that Shadowverse does not have a lot of RNG, and that is a good thing, right? You don't want to be in a spot like, say, Hearthstone, where they have so much RNG that games are crazy and wild and you can't predict anything, and that's not necessarily great either, right? Card games will inherently have RNG because they're a card game, right? But when you have almost no RNG and the games are the same every time, you end up in situations where it's whatever deck you queue against whatever you queue up against, it's kind of already decided, right? It's oh, the Shadow go first, and they have a 1-drop and a 2-drop and a 3-drop, then I guess I lose, right? It's doesn't matter what you do. Or you're playing Dragon, you'll play your Ramp, and then you'll play your Bahamut, your Ouroboros, and then things don't really matter too much, right? So I feel like the skill is definitely kind of gone downhill, and that's not necessarily a great thing, obviously. And again, it's not just Shadow and Dragon, Because if Shadow and Dragon weren't around, we have cards like D-Shift, Aegis, Roach. These cards that pretty much guarantee that, you know, games will never be too long. You know, cards like Bahamut, Prince of Darkness. And again, that is the design by Cygames, and it's not necessarily a problem. Like, games could be short and they could be enjoyable, but I feel like right now they are just too short, and therefore just not really that enjoyable. And that brings us to my next point, which is that decisions matter less. And what I mean by this is that if you take an average game of like 5 to 7 turns, a couple of those turns you will have no decisions, right? Because like on turn 1 you can only play a 1-drop if you have one, turn 2 you can only play a 2-drop, and so on. So you will have maybe 2 or 3, if at that, instances where you're actually making a choice that matters and decides the outcome of the game, right? If you compare that to, like, say, a 10-minute game that has no decisions, then your decisions, the way you played, will impact the outcome of the game, where you win or lose, right? But now we're playing these games that are so quick, and you barely have a decision at all, because the decks now, they kind of tend to play themselves, right? Everything is so, like, obvious and oppressive that, like, your Shadow, again, we keep going back to this, but it's just like your Shadow, you play 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop Prince. Doesn't really matter what else you're doing, and that's not really a decision you're making, right? It's like, I chose to queue up as Shadow, but like, where's the fun in that, right? Where's the interaction between the players? We have a lot of issues where these decks don't care what your opponent is doing. And again, you know, I'm going to Shadow and Dragon a lot here, but they're by no means the only examples here. We can even take something like Aegis, for example, right? Where Aegis, like, your whole game plan is, like, your opponent will play something, you'll remove it. They play something, you remove it. They play something, you remove it. Then you have your combo, which is, like, Death Strand, Aegis, and then you win, right? Shadow will play 1-drop, 2-drop Prince. What your opponent is doing is, like, not even mattering, right? Even if you take other decks, like, for example, like the Vengeance, Aggro, Blood, right? You set yourself to Vengeance, and you start going face, and it doesn't matter what your opponent is doing, where you win or lose. And that's kind of sad, right? Because what you want in the game is a nice back and forth interaction between the two players, and you can explore yourself the way you play your deck, right? But I feel like right now games are so short, and decisions don't really matter, which sadly leads to unfun and uninteractive gameplay. And I know that phrase is kind of cliche, but I feel like it's kind of true here, and it's kind of sad because I know Shadowverse could be so much better because I've played it when it's been much better, right? And that brings us to this point, which is the future of Shadowverse. So we've talked about things that are not so great with the game, and let's talk about what that means for the game, right? First of all, let me say that I don't have a great, simple solution to these problems, because a lot of people will say that, oh, they just need to nerf Dragon, nerf Shadow, but I don't think it's that simple. And while I would hope that Cygames will implement some nerfs and balance changes, and that definitely would help, the problem is that that might not solve the underlying issue, right? If you take the top 2 classes away, then there will be 2 new top classes, and people will complain about those, and there's still cards that are still a problem, right? Things like Roach are still a problem, because, you know, you might forget about it now, but if Dragon or Shadow were not here, we'd be sitting here complaining about things like Roach and other things anyway, right? So it's not that simple of a nerf or 2, and even then, it's like, if Cygames were to nerf some cards and the meta is better, there's a new set coming out in 2 months, you know? And what is the direction that they're going in? Because if the direction they're going in is that they still want games to be even faster and decisions are not going to matter, then that's not great, right? They're printing a lot of cards that are just like auto win the game, things like that. Like Cell just gives you 13 burst damage out of nowhere for no reason, you know? Cards like Aegis, right? So, again, I don't know if a simple balance patch will fix the game. In the past Cygames, they have been very honest and upfront with us about the state of the game. They've talked about how when Purgatory was oppressive, you know, why that was, and their changes and things like that. And obviously there's going to be more expansions and more content, and that's great. And you hope that every expansion will make the game better, right? But as we've seen from Temples of the Gods, it is not always the case, right? So what I would like to know is, you know, how does Cygames feel about the game now? Will they, you know, straight up tell us that, hey, Tempest was not great, we know we made some mistakes, this is wrong, that's wrong? Or are they okay with this? Is this the way they want the game to be, you know? Are they happy now? Is this the way we're going to go in the future too, right? Those are things that you know, I wonder about. And it's only because I like Shadowverse so much, and I really care about it. So, you know, I hope that we get nerfs, but I hope more so than that they tell us that they realize that they made a mistake here, because as a streamer, as a player, I feel it, right? When people show up to my stream and they're like, hey, I'm not playing Shadowverse anymore, I'm not enjoying it, I don't want to play anymore, I don't care about it anymore, it's kind of sad, right? So, I hope that the future will be better. You know, an expansion could definitely make things a lot better, and a balance patch could help as well, right? It's just, what is the direction that Side Games wants to go? And I hope it's one where games are maybe a little bit longer, maybe we have a little bit more back and forth interaction, and maybe it's just a little bit more fun, right? Because we are playing this game for fun after all. And if you're at a point where doing your quest feels like a chore, then something is wrong, right? Side Games does a lot of right things. They are very generous. They've given out a million things. And again, in the past they have been open, but I feel like now they have to step up. Let us know how they feel, what's really going on. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know how you guys feel about the state of the game. If you guys enjoyed content, give me a like, give me a sub. Thank you guys so much for watching.